name is Sergio Otoya. I represent a company called LivePoint. We specialize in SharePoint implementations here in Australia. I'm the technical director, and today I will be running 2 sessions for you. Hoping that these subjects or these topics that I'm going to be discussing today will be interesting to you and they're relevant to your implementations. I realize that this is a .NET user group, but hopefully there's a crossover with SharePoint in these things that you do. And with that, I would like to launch into my first session, which is actually one that I did in the DevCon conference for Office, which was held in Microsoft last year, somewhere in November, I think it was. And we did a combination of demonstrations which were called Rapidfires, which are really quick presentations of very specific topics. So I'm reusing some of the content here for you. Just as a show of hand, how many people use SharePoint in their day-to-day jobs? Great. Okay, and the rest are just pure .NET implementers? Great. Okay, so hopefully, because SharePoint is built on top of .NET, some of these concepts will not be too alien to you, and hopefully you can get some cross-training on this. So just to set the scene, the problem that we have in SharePoint, and for those who have implemented SharePoint, SharePoint MOS or Office Server, and WSS as well, there's some problems with the navigation and keeping the navigation consistent across site collections. Who's had that issue before? Great. So, and the issue is that when you create a SharePoint portal or collaboration template, if you create site collections, each site collection will get its own navigation, right? And if you think about site collections, they're silos. So they're silos within SharePoint. Security, content types, master pages, everything is siloed, and navigation is siloed within that site collection. So one of the issues is that you might be working for a corporate, for an organization that's got a lot of site collections and a lot of sites that need to be created, and your corporate branding demands that your navigation is the same throughout the portal, right? So you could implement that very easily at the top level, but then going down to the site collections, it's a bit of a hassle. All right? So by using some of the out-of-the-box features, they are a little bit hidden in SharePoint. And what we're going to be using today is a custom sitemap. All right? It's an XML file that we implement in the server. Yes, it is a manual update, but once we update that file, it replicates throughout the site collections. So I want to show you how we can do this. All right, so the demonstration will be, we're going to be creating a sitemap. In fact, I'm going to show you an XML file that contains the navigation and how it's structured. This is just an XML file that shows you the different levels. We're going to make some changes to the web config of the portal. Hey, Sarah. How are you? And we're going to configure a master page that will show you how that sitemap will be used. I'm going to keep this handy because there's quite a few steps and things that we need to do. And this will be in the slides for later on for, I don't know if you guys, I think you uploaded to a site or something. So I'll give you all the slides that you need. So the first thing that I want to do is to show you a SharePoint site with its current navigation. Okay, so it's got home, departments, news, etc. And this is just an plain out-of-the-box navigation from SharePoint. But I've got some other site collections such as corporate services, and you can see dev base, department corporate services, and I've got finance as well. Oops, if I can type right. Finance, and I've got some other site collections as well. Okay, my issue here is that over here you can see that my navigation is different from my top level. All right, this is a site collection. Finance is a site collection, and the home page, which is a portal, is also a site collection. This is a navigation there, and the reason why we have this sort of functionality, it's because we've got publishing features enabled in the collaboration portal. So my task is, how do I replicate or how do I make sure that this navigation is also shown in the site collections while keeping a centralized record of my nodes and my navigation elements, all right? Okay, so hopefully you're with me so far. So the first thing is, in these instructions is that we need to create a sitemap, a customized sitemap. And the sitemap, as I'm going to show you, is just simply an XML file. I'm going to open it in Visual Studio. That just shows me the levels. And you can see that it's the first sitemap node is a home URL. And you just go into the slash, or basically the home portal. And then there are sitemap nodes inside them that represent the different levels. OK? So there's a number of, I guess, 1, 2, 3 levels in this sitemap. OK, so that's the first thing. And you can create this by hand or with your favorite XML editor. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it to a location in the server so that it's accessible by SharePoint. I'm going to use the layouts directory because that is accessible by most of the pages and sites. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that into my directory. My next step is to actually go into the web config, and I need to specify, and I need to tell SharePoint that this is a data source or a sitemap source that can be used throughout the portal. So I'm going to go into the directory of where the SharePoint portal is hosted, and I'm going to open that into in Visual Studio. For some reason, it's not responding, so let's just drag that into here. OK, so let's open this up. And what we need to look for is the sitemap nodes. And you can see here that there's a number of different providers that SharePoint uses. The one that I use all the time is this one here. This is a Navigator, which is a custom SPS XML content map provider. And I make a copy of this line, like I've done here. And I specify the name of the sitemap provider. So this could be my custom sitemap provider or Sergio's map provider, etc. Right? And noticing here that I'm pointing to the file that I just loaded onto the layouts directory. The layouts directory, for those who don't know, it's a special virtual directory within IIS. It's underscore layouts. It maps to underscore layouts. And that's the name of my the sitemap that I just created. And the rest is just basically the definition of the sitemap and which assemblies are actually providing this information. So let me get rid of this content and then save that. So far, so good. I haven't done anything too difficult. But SharePoint doesn't know anything about this because I'm not using the sitemap. It's declared here, but it's not being used in any page. So let's go to SharePoint. And in this time, we're going to open the site in SharePoint Designer. The reason for that is that I need to change the master page and change some of the tags of the controls that we've got there to provide or to use a different sitemap than the default ones. For those who don't use SharePoint, the master page is actually stored under the catalogs directory and the master page. And then we've got the default master. There's a number of master pages that we can use here, but I'm using the default.master. So let me open that up. It's not usually this slow. I didn't give you the initial, it's all running in my machine and virtual PCs, etc., the usual, I guess, excuses. So in here, the default master page is basically a HTML page which gives some directives as to how to render other pages based on the master page. So what we need to look for, and this is the one that I always forget, is we need to look for the tag called ASP menu. So under here, I'm going to do a quick find of ASP menu, and I find the control that actually provides the menu for the navigation in SharePoint. You can see that it's highlighted under here, right? And notice that the data source ID is mapping to a data source ID called top site map. And this is the top site map data source is basically providing the default navigation nodes for SharePoint. So what we need to do here is to create a new entry. And for this, I'm going to copy all of this. Not this one. It's actually this. So it's the SharePoint ASP menu that I need to create. Sorry, it's the ASP. And if I can remember this, always got to go back to here, is a ASP sitemap data source. So that's the one that I'm going to copy. I'm just going to make sure that it's all in the one line. Okay, so what have we done here? Let me just make sure that this is all formatted correctly. This is declaring a new tag within the master page saying, there's a new sitemap data source. I'm going to give it an ID of my custom sitemap. And it's actually pointing to the IIS or to the web config map provider that I created in the earlier step. So that's my custom sitemap provider. Let me just double check that that's the name. Otherwise, this thing could fall over. And that name should map to my custom sitemap provider, and I'm pretty sure that that is case sensitive as well. So it's my custom sitemap provider. Okay, all good. And the last thing that we need to do is to just say the data source ID for this is actually this ID. Okay, let's save it. And let's have a look at the results. Okay, so now what we've done is we are showing the navigation from the XML files. All right? But wait a minute, we still have a problem with our finance site collections. So one of the issues, one of the things that we need to do is now actually replicate this master page to all those site collections. In theory or in practice, when you do this, you would create either a template for your site collections or you would change the site definitions so that by the time that you provision your site collections, this tag and this sitemap is already configured in those pages. So when you create them, the navigation is already there. Okay? So let me show you how we can just simply copy the master page using SharePoint Designer and go to this page for the site collection in Finance. And we simply go edit in SharePoint Designer. And we're going to copy the default master from the top level portal to an existing site collection. And I'm looking for the catalogs and the master page directory. Notice it's only one default master. I'm going to go over to this window, which is my top level. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to drop it into my finance site collection. So if I go now to my finance site collection, it's now got the same navigation, consistent navigation than my top level portal. Does that make sense? Okay, so what we've seen here, and what I said before as well, is that when you are working in a big corporation, the corporate branding or corporate the corporate communications department, which is usually who owns the intranet, demand that you have a consistent navigation and coloring scheme and all that. This is one of the elements that you will need to look at when you deploy an intranet within an enterprise. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense for those of you who don't use SharePoint on a day-to-day basis. Okay. So the next part of my presentation will be, let me close this. The next part of the presentation will be another rapid fire session for tips and tricks on Dataviews. And again, I'd like to know who's seen or who's used a Dataview before. Great. What sort of things are you using with Dataviews, for example? Gentleman here at the front. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Just
normal.
Just done with data, straight for database.
So going over to a database or to maybe a list source to present data in a more friendly way, perhaps? Better formatting?
Yes.
Yes?
Maybe I'll try to stop using Dataviews as much as I can.
Okay, fair enough. Was there any reason for that?
It's more of an older style.
For the Dataviews or the data forms, right? Is it?
Yes.
All right. So I'm not sure why it would be an older style. The new style, I'm not really sure, perhaps writing your own Webpart, but that involves code. I know that you guys are all .NET developers, and code might be very familiar to you and maybe easier. The Dataview is a very useful Webpart for doing things via configuration without lines of code. Perhaps you need to know a little bit of XSL, and style sheets, right? But I consider the Dataview as kind of a Swiss Army Webpart, that it's a good tool to have in your toolbox. Anyone else could share an experience with what they do with Dataviews?
Yeah, just storing things like project-related information in SharePoint. You'll often have lots of custom lists of things like descriptions of projects and tasks related to projects. And so if we ever need to display a sort of a grouped view that includes data from multiple lists,
correct,
we could say this project's related to this user and this task, and bring that related information together and display it.
Fantastic. Good example, very good example, yes. A lot of people use the Dataviews. You must be using the linked data sources to be able to link different tables and show a combined view of that. Have you ever been through
Repeat
the question and the answer? Right. So one other thing, what was your name, sorry? Tim, how are you? Tim, so for when you're doing your Dataviews, for example, have you ever had the need to show a centralized list on a different site? So for example, you might have a top site collection where you have customers, but you go into the lower level sites or sub-sites, and you still want to show information from your customer list, or your project list in this case, perhaps.
Yeah, I guess we found that when you've got the data view and you've got the content query rollups, they sort of have slightly different functionality where, say, one can draw from other sites and inherit sort of data from lots of sub-sites, and one of them can't. One supports paging, one doesn't.
Yes.
There definitely is a gap there in the functionality of the out-of-the-box Webparts, and sometimes you have to grab third-party control to
do the roll-ups. Yeah. Funny you mentioned that. I have been dreaming of having a data view that can connect to what it's called, I think, a site data query, which is what allows you to do the roll-ups within SharePoint, right? And using that as a data source to then provide that to the data view. And then, in fact, what that will do to you is to give you the functionality of a content query on a data view, being able to format it and being able to group it and add extra actions to your XSL. One of the things that I always use as well with Dataviews is when you do roll-ups of information for project tasks, for example, sometimes you get to a project site and you want to show in red which are the tasks that are due today or that are overdue. You can't do that with normal out-of-the-box list views, right? The views that you can configure within SharePoint, within the lists. You cannot do that easily, I don't think. You have to modify a lot of XML or CAML in your schema XML of the lists. So the data view is a very good alternative to creating all those solutions from the user's perspective and from a developer's perspective as well. Okay, so let me show you. There's two things that I want to show you today with the data views. There's a lot more that we can talk about and tricks that I've learned over the years with the data views. And I consider this, I guess, a Webpart that it's a Swiss Army knife. And a lot of things can be implemented with it. Okay, so the first problem we have already talked about, which is I want to create, what is this? Oh, yes. So I want to create a site, a template, say for example, a project site. Imagine a project site where that is created from a template. And every time you create the project site, it shows you on the front page all the overdue tasks for that project within that site. Okay? For that, you would need to use a data view. Now, when you create a data view in SharePoint Designer, what it does is it actually links to the GUID of the list. Okay, has anyone seen that before? Yes. How do you get around that? And you want to make sure that you create a site or a template based on that site so that subsequent project sites that you create from that template work. If you imagine what's happening is that SharePoint is pointing to the original list. You create a new site, and that site's going to point back to here. And it's going to go, I'm not playing. I can't do this. Right? So what we needed to do is to create a relative Webpart that when I create a new site, it looks at the tasks list of my project site. Are we in? We understand that? Great. So let me show you what we need to do. So the first thing that I want to do is to create a list data view with SharePoint Designer, configure it, and I want to show you what happens for those that haven't seen this. We're going to create a template, and we're going to create a site based on that. So I'm going to take a little bit longer probably on this. Hopefully time is OK. So the first thing is to go back to let's go to corporate services. And I'm going to the site collection. And I'm going to go to a site that I call template. OK? I've got a task list in here with a number of items. The first thing that I'm going to do is to add a Webpart here for a data view and apply some formatting. So let's do that. For those who haven't seen the data view, I need to select the zone where I need to add it to. I go data view, insert data view. I then select the list that I want to insert. I show the data first to make sure. Then I select the items that I want to show. In this case, I want to show the title. I want to show the probably modified. What else? Priority somewhere. Status and priority. % complete. OK, let's do that. I'm just going to drag it in here. So this is cool. It's just now showing me a list of items from that list. What I will do now is I want to create some sorting, perhaps. I want to do it on priority. I want to do it by priority. So anything, I want to show the header, and I want to expand it by default. So I will say OK. This is creating XSL in the background. It will show me the groups now. Now what I want to do is I want to format this row, and I'm going to select the whole row. And this is a little bit finicky. You have to point correctly. We then go, I think it's right-click, conditional formatting. Then we do a create, apply formatting. I'm just going to do something very easy. Priority equals high or something. That's that. And I'm going to apply the formatting by setting the background color to big red. OK? So you can, if you guys are more artistic than me, you can probably do a lot better than this, right? But that's a concept. Let's go back to the template. And Okay, we've got a data view showing the items and the high priorities highlighted as red. So this is flashing with information here for the users. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to create a site template or a user template based on this. I will go somewhere in here is save site as template. I'm going to call this my project site template. One, not working initially. That'll do. I won't include the content. I will add some items as I go along. Okay, so what that does is it saves the definition of the site, and I can now create sites based on this. So I go back up to the corporate services area, and I will go create a new site, sites and workspaces. And in this case, I need to go to custom, and that's my project site. Not working. This will not work. If it doesn't work, then I probably should go home. Won't display it, and use. Okay, so it'll just take about a minute to create this. And there you go. This is a problem that you get straight away. All right? Anyone seen this before? Nope? Okay. Well, you're seeing it now. So this is the issue that you will face. Now, what is the trick that we need to perform on the list to be able to get over this? And that's what I'm going to show you. So, and for that, I also have to go to my Rapidfire instructions. We need to look for this data form parameter. Okay? So we'll go to the HTML behind this, and we'll look for data form, say parameter, was it? Parameter. There you go. Okay, let me just reformat this a little bit so that we can see it all. Is that too small, actually, the font? That's all good? Okay, where am I? Data form, Webpart. Yeah, here. Okay, now notice this, list ID. And what do we see here? It's actually the GUID, isn't it? So that's internal GUID of a list. And that's why SharePoint is confused as to what it's going to do. I'm expecting an object to display items in here, in this site, for a GUID that exists in my site, but it's no longer there, okay? Because it exists somewhere else. So let's play the trick. All we need to do is simply to change the ID by name. So instead of list ID, we call list name. And the parameter, who can tell me what I should be putting here?
Tasks.
Awesome. Tasks. Okay, so if you look at the documentation of the Dataviews data form parameters, it tells you that you can use list names. Okay, there's two things. It's this one, and the other one is parameter bindings, I think. Not binging, but binding. That one. Okay, again, don't ask me what this means, and why do we need the parameters as well. I just know it works right now. Okay, so I'm going to save, and if everything goes well, this one will still show. Otherwise, it'll show me a very nasty error. Okay, that's all good. All right? It's still working internally. All right? So let's go back out to the site, which is our corporate services template. We did on the template, didn't we? Yes, here. It's still working. Let's save a new template. Site settings. Save a site template. This time working. Okay, go back to here, create a new site. Oops, create. Where? It's here. Make sure that we select this works. Create. There. Okay, now we don't have the error, but we don't have any tasks, so let's create a quick set. Say OK. And a new one. Second. OK. Let's go back up to this works now. And we get the formatting. OK? So list name, remember that bit. List ID replaced with list name. Now, very quickly, how would I then apply this? And this should work for all the other sites. I've got another site that says corporate rebranding. OK? And I've got some tasks in there. How do I get this Webpart into there? So very easy. And that's the beauty of the change that we just made. I'm just going to go to my template or this works now. And I can just export this because it's now relative. At the end of the day, the Dataview Webpart is simply XML to XSL conversions. So I'm going to save these. It's task Webpart. I'm going to go to my corporate services area, view site collection, corporate rebranding. I'm going to go actions, edit page, add Webpart. Sorry if I'm going too fast. Advanced Webpart gallery. Now to add a custom one, you have to go to this menu, import. I can go browse, tasks, Webpart. I'm only doing it once in one site, but the best way would be to add it to where? To the Webpart site gallery. Yeah? So then that way it's available to all my subsites. So here you go. We can see now that it's now working relative to this site. Will that help anyone?
This works for every Webpart.
For the Dataview Webparts.
Sorry?
For Dataview.
Dataview?
Oh, OK. Exporting and importing? Yes.
No. I'm sorry, I meant the whole thing. The changing the list ID.
Only for the Dataview. Yes. Only for the Dataview. Yes. Will this help anyone else? Or yes? Great. Anyone else at the back? Cool. Excellent. OK. Having got that out of the way, the next bit of my slides. OK, so this is also a problem that we showed before. Showing the items of a remote list in a different site. So this time, I don't want to show the local task list or the local customer list of my subsite. I want to show the customer list or the contact list of my top level site in any site underneath that. Does that make sense? OK. Firstly, there's two methods of doing this. And first one, I'll show you the very easy one, which is through the menus. OK, which is the out of the box, connect to another library. There's a very small link in SharePoint Designer down underneath that no one knows about, I think. Or not a lot of people know about, but it's very useful for this. So we go to corporate services, and we've got a contacts list. First thing, as everything, we need to open this up in SharePoint Designer and create the data view. So let's do that. Again, select the Webpart zone. I'm looking for the contacts. I'm not going to do any formatting on this. I'm just going to get some items or some of this information. Where is it? So last name. Where's the rest? Actually, full name, email address, company, and job title. That's it. That will do. All right. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to save these. If I try to create a site based on this, or put this into a site template, it will fail. You know that, right? So that's the usual way that we do it. Now, if I want to create a Webpart that I can then put into every other site to look at this list, I can use this connect to another library link. What this allows me to do is to define other data sources or remote data sources. In my case, it will be this. Okay, so what I can do is actually, sorry, I actually need to do this in a sub-site. So I need to go to, what is this one? This is the template. Yes, the template will be good. I go into select my zone. Come on, select the zone. Not playing. Select the other zone, okay. I think. Okay, insert data view. And in this case, I can do connect to another library. Notice that I'm in a sub-site. And I'm going to do corporate services. Sorry. That's my URL. And I'll call it corporate services. Or remote if I want to. What this does is it creates another group here. This is the current site, and now this is the corporate services site. So that's all it is, really. I can go there, contacts, show data, and now I can select the fields that I want to add in there. So again, full name, email, company, select, drop in here, save. Okay? So I can now create a template out of this, and all my subsequent sites will work in this way. Now that's the very easy way through the interface. What happens if you have already done what I did before, which is I dragged my web parts, and I don't want to recreate the whole thing again, right? I just want to change a couple of tags. And the answer is here, obviously, right? You will see, if we can have a look at this, the definition of this web part, you will see that the data form tag contains, was it data form parameters, wasn't it? Parameter. Data form parameters contains, and this might be the first one, contains an extra item that actually tells you web URL. So again, before we use list name instead of list ID, this time we're adding an extra line that directs the data view to say, well, actually, I want that list ID or that list name over there, but in this address. Okay? And that's where the address is. So if you need to change existing data views, this is what you would have to do. Simply add this line to the data form parameters and to the parameter bindings again. If we look at that, parameter bindings, you will see that the web URL is also there. Okay?
Any problem with trying saturation?
Unfortunately not. It's a very good question. So the question is, can we point the data view to another site collection? Right? So we're in corporate services, and we want to show the information on the finance site collection via the data view. And the answer is no right now. And again, this site data query or extending perhaps the data view behind the scenes, actually, US.NET programmers, you can create your own data sources. Okay? So that data source can span multiple site collections if you want to, so long as you provide the data in a certain way. All right? The data view also connects to web services, to databases, to many different formats, right? But in the end, what it really returns is XML. So if you can get something called a web service that returns the XML in a certain way, then you're away, right? All you have to do is present the data in the data view. The data view is just a presentation layer. All right, guys, so that concludes kind of my presentation, unless anyone else has any questions. Okay, thank you very much.